The smug expression on Brenda's face made the coffee in my stomach turn acidic as she pushed the restructuring document across the polished surface of her mahogany desk. "We are reevaluating the divisional budget allocations for the upcoming fiscal year," she declared, her tone as coldly synthetic as the industrial solvents we manufactured. "Every member of the organization must shoulder a portion of the financial burden. We are extending an offer to retain you with a 60% reduction in your annual compensation, but we sincerely hope you recognize the long-term value of remaining a dedicated member of our corporate family." I stared at the stark figures printed on the heavy stock paper. It was not a typographical error. They genuinely intended to slash my salary from $85,000 down to a paltry $34,000. For 7 consecutive years, I had poured my absolute maximum effort into expanding their market share, sacrificing countless evenings and weekends, and this insulting proposition was their idea of a reward. "This adjustment will become effective." On the first day of the following month, Brenda continued seamlessly, repeatedly tapping her manicured fingernail directly onto the dotted signature line at the bottom of the page. "We will require your formal written decision by the end of the business day on Friday." I deliberately held my composure, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a visible flinch, an angry outburst, or any display of emotional distress. I merely offered a slow, measured nod, fully comprehending the vicious strategy they were executing against me. 3 other senior executives observed the entire interaction from the periphery of the executive suite, their eyes reflecting the predatory satisfaction of scavengers closing in on a wounded animal. "I comprehend the parameters of your proposal," I stated, ensuring my voice remained completely devoid of inflection. "I will thoroughly review this documentation and provide you with my final response." Walking out of that glass-enclosed conference environment felt akin to navigating through a dense, invisible fog. 7 years of enduring hazardous chemical burns on my forearms. 7 years of developing cutting-edge, environmentally compliant formulations that had single-handedly resurrected their stagnating product line and transformed their struggling enterprise into a formidable industry leader currently valued at multi-millions. And now, they operated under the arrogant assumption that they had me perfectly cornered. My name is Hector, for the record. I am 48 years old, navigating the complexities of life as a single father to my 14-year-old daughter, Clara, who unfortunately battles a chronic autoimmune condition that our corporate health insurance policy only partially mitigates. The crushing medical invoices arrive in my mailbox with the reliable precision of a ticking clock. The executive leadership was acutely aware of my financial vulnerabilities. They had even sent a generic floral arrangement to the hospital during her severe flare-up the previous year. A cheap, uninspired bouquet that wilted into a depressing mess within 24 hours. So there I was, marching across the sprawling asphalt parking lot toward my aging sedan, gripping a legally binding document that essentially translated to, "We are fully aware of your desperate circumstances, therefore we possess the power to dictate your financial worth." In retrospect, I should have identified the subtle warning signs much earlier. There had been a deliberate pattern of excluding me from strategic development meetings I had historically led, a sudden implementation of restrictive security protocols limiting my access to the primary laboratory to specific operational hours, and an abnormal level of scrutiny directed at my intellectual property documentation methodologies. However, what these arrogant executives completely failed to realize was that I had been anticipating a treacherous maneuver like this for an extended period, and I had been meticulously fortifying my position. To fully contextualize this situation, I need to provide some crucial background information. I am an industrial chemist, and I am exceptionally proficient at my profession. My specific area of expertise revolves around engineering heavy-duty industrial cleaning solutions that deliver maximum efficacy while maintaining a strictly minimal environmental footprint. When I initially accepted my position at Apex Solutions 7 years ago, the organization was floundering, a relatively obscure entity burdened with outdated product lines and a rapidly deteriorating client roster. Within the first 12 months of my tenure, I successfully engineered a proprietary formulation that eradicated resilient industrial grime, utilizing only 50% of the chemical concentration required by our leading competitors. By the conclusion of my third year, my continuous stream of innovations had effectively tripled their active client base. By my fifth year, the revenue generated from my formulations funded the construction of two entirely new, state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities. Clara's autoimmune condition manifested severely during my sixth year with the company. The relentless procession of specialized medical consultations and exhaustive diagnostic testing systematically depleted my accumulated savings, even after factoring in the supposed benefits of my insurance coverage. Consequently, I approached the executive board to request a completely justified salary increase, utilizing the company's exponential revenue growth as undeniable leverage. In response, they offered me a condescending wellness bonus, a singular, lump sum payment that barely covered the cost of 2 months' worth of our outstanding medical debts. During that exact same week, I inadvertently overheard Brenda boasting to a major investor at the corporate holiday banquet that my specific research division was independently responsible for generating 40% of the entire company's annual revenue. She was prominently wearing a newly acquired diamond necklace that undeniably cost more than my entire annual salary. That specific evening, a profound psychological shift occurred within me. I drove home, bypassed my bedroom entirely, and immediately extracted my original employment contract from my filing cabinet. "Dad, why are you still awake at this hour?" Clara had quietly asked, discovering me at 2 in the morning, intensely scrutinizing legal documents spread across our worn kitchen table. "Just reviewing some professional materials, sweetheart," I replied softly. "Please go back to sleep. Is everything all right? Are you stressing about our finances again?" A 14-year-old child should not be burdened with the psychological weight of financial anxiety. It was fundamentally wrong. "Everything is going to be perfectly fine," I reassured her with genuine conviction. And for the very first time in several agonizing months, I possessed absolute certainty that I was telling her the truth. I had discovered an incredibly compelling detail buried within the dense legalese of my contract. The intellectual property clause, which theoretically granted Apex Solutions total ownership of my professional output, contained remarkably specific parameters. The text explicitly stated, "All inventions, discoveries, and chemical formulations developed utilizing company-owned facilities and corporate materials during standard operational business hours shall remain the exclusive sole property of Apex Solutions. During standard operational business hours, utilizing company-owned facilities and corporate materials." For several consecutive years, I had maintained a highly functional, independent laboratory within the confines of my personal garage. It was not a multi-million-dollar facility, but it was equipped with professional-grade analytical instrumentation. I had methodically purchased with my own funds over an extended period. Whenever a complex chemical inspiration struck me late at night, or while I was sitting in the sterile waiting rooms during Clara's endless medical appointments, I would meticulously record the conceptual frameworks in my personal notebooks. During my weekends, I would independently synthesize and rigorously test numerous formulation variations using my privately owned equipment. The undeniable reality was that my absolute most groundbreaking work, the highly advanced formulations that had authentically transformed Apex Solutions' financial trajectory, had initially been conceptualized, synthesized, and rigorously perfected within the walls of my own home, utilizing my personal resources, long before I ever recreated them for demonstration purposes at the corporate laboratory. Crucially, I possessed an impenetrable fortress of documentation validating this fact. Meticulously maintained, chronologically dated laboratory journals, comprehensive video recordings documenting my independent garage experiments, and a meticulously organized file containing every single purchase receipt for the raw materials I had independently acquired. I had inadvertently established a massive legal loophole, and I was fully prepared to exploit it with devastating precision. The day following the receipt of my insulting restructuring documentation, I arrived at the corporate facility precisely on schedule, maintaining my standard professional demeanor, politely greeting my colleagues, and executing my daily laboratory testing protocols without demonstrating a single hint of distress. However, during my designated lunch hour, I discreetly exited the premises to conduct a pivotal meeting with Simon, an aggressive and highly competent patent attorney I had been retaining on a consultative basis for the past 3 months. Everything is completely finalized and officially registered, Simon confirmed, sliding a dense stack of heavily stamped legal documents across his desk. The provisional patents were successfully filed and officially recognized last week. The moment you authorize the action, we are fully prepared to aggressively proceed with the comprehensive, permanent patent applications. 3 distinct formulations were completely secured under my legal ownership. These were my 3 absolute most effective creations, including a revolutionary new formulation that the executives at Apex Solutions had not even been made aware of yet. This specific invention was a highly advanced cleaning agent engineered to operate with maximum efficacy in cold water environments, a technological breakthrough that would theoretically reduce a manufacturing facility's energy consumption costs by an astonishing 30%. It was a massive game changer for any industrial client. For the duration of the subsequent week, I flawlessly executed the role of the defeated, desperate corporate employee. I humbly approached Brenda and requested a minor extension of a few additional days to deeply consider their devastating financial ultimatum. I specifically referenced my daughter's ongoing medical requirements during our conversation. It was a fascinating psychological exercise to sit across from her and observe her feigned superficial sympathy while her eyes clearly indicated she was mentally calculating the exact profit margins the company would enjoy by successfully slashing my compensation. We genuinely value your historical contributions to this organization. Hector, she stated, her voice practically dripping with artificial, corporate-mandated concern, but ultimately, business is business, and we must prioritize the financial health of the collective enterprise. Behind the scenes, while they were congratulating themselves on their ruthless efficiency, I was meticulously orchestrating a strategic counter-offensive they could never possibly anticipate. I formally authorized Simon to finalize my permanent patent applications. Simultaneously, I secured a highly confidential meeting with Julian, the Executive Director of Research and Development at Zenith Innovations, which was Apex Solutions' most formidable industry competitor. Your historical body of work is exceptionally impressive, Julian stated transparently after conducting a thorough review of my sanitized professional portfolio. And I must admit, the current situation you are enduring at Apex Solutions is deeply unfortunate but highly advantageous for us. We are fully prepared to immediately extend a formal offer for the position of Senior Director of Research. Your starting base salary would be strictly set at $175,000 annually, completely independent of a substantial dedicated research budget and full authority over your own specialized team. This offer represented exactly double my current salary, and it was significantly more than triple the pathetic amount Apex Solutions was attempting to force upon me. I am highly interested in accepting this position, I informed him with a firm handshake. However, there is a highly sensitive legal matter regarding intellectual property that we must thoroughly discuss and formalize before I can sign the employment agreement. The following Tuesday, exactly 24 hours prior to my absolute deadline to officially accept Apex Solutions' insulting financial ultimatum, I meticulously prepared for the execution of my strategy. I consciously selected a tailored, dark charcoal suit that exuded professional authority. I ensured my appearance was immaculately groomed, even wore the vintage silver watch my late father had bequeathed to me. A subtle psychological anchor. You look incredibly sharp today, Dad, Clara observed as I dropped her off at her high school campus. You look like you are preparing to step into a professional boxing ring. You are an incredibly perceptive young woman, I replied, offering her a confident smile. I confidently strode into the primary headquarters of Apex Solutions at precisely 9:30 in the morning. The front desk receptionist, who had passively watched me trudge into the building before dawn for 7 consecutive years, barely bothered to glance up from her monitor. I confidently bypassed the standard employee elevators and accessed the executive floor, a restricted area where my presence was generally considered unwelcome unless explicitly summoned. Brenda's executive assistant immediately stood up, attempting to physically obstruct my path. "You cannot enter. She is currently leading a critical strategy meeting with the executive board." I completely ignored her protests, stepping smoothly past her desk and opening the heavy oak doors of the primary conference room without knocking. Brenda sat at the head of the expansive table, surrounded by the entire executive leadership team. 8 highly paid individuals immediately looked up, their expressions universally radiating intense annoyance at the unannounced interruption. "Hector," Brenda snapped sharply, her professional veneer cracking instantly. "We are in the middle of a highly sensitive discussion. Please exit immediately." "This matter will require only a single minute of your time," I replied, projecting my voice with absolute unwavering calm. I walked directly to the head of the table and deliberately placed a thick, heavily sealed manila envelope directly onto the polished wood before Brenda. "What exactly is the meaning of this?" she demanded, crossing her arms and refusing to physically touch the document. "Is this the formal acceptance of our restructuring offer?" "Not exactly," I stated clearly, ensuring every individual in the room could hear me. "It is a formal, legally binding licensing agreement." Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows contracted in genuine confusion. "A what?" "A licensing agreement authorizing the continued corporate utilization of my proprietary chemical formulations," I clarified, specifically referencing formula designation XR7, formula designation PT19, and the newly developed cold water variant CW40. The expansive conference room plunged into a profound, suffocating silence. Vance, the corporate legal director, was the very first executive to recover his cognitive functions. "Your formulations," he scoffed, emitting a dismissive, arrogant laugh. "Those formulations are the exclusive, legally protected property of Apex Solutions. Your employment contract explicitly dictates that any and all inventions created utilizing corporate facilities during standard operational business hours." I forcefully interrupted his prepared legal recitation. "I possess comprehensive, irrefutable, and chronologically validated documentation, proving beyond any reasonable legal doubt that these specific formulations were independently conceptualized, engineered, and synthesized within my privately owned home laboratory, utilizing my personal financial resources entirely outside the parameters of standard operational business hours." I confidently placed a second, equally thick envelope directly adjacent to the first. "These documents are officially certified copies of my federal patent applications. They have already been successfully filed and provisionally approved by the United States Patent and Trademark Office." Brenda's complexion rapidly drained of all color as her trembling hands finally tore open the first envelope, and her eyes rapidly scanned the uncompromising legal terminology. The proposed licensing agreement was structurally quite simple. Apex Solutions was legally permitted to continue utilizing my proprietary formulations for a strictly non-negotiable monthly royalty fee of $4,250 per individual formula. This cumulative total mathematically equaled the precise financial amount they had arrogantly planned to cut from my monthly compensation. "This is absolute absurdity," she sputtered, her voice losing all of its typical corporate authority. "You cannot simply dictate." "I absolutely can, and I already have," I stated, my volume remaining dangerously quiet. "You currently possess exactly 2 viable operational options. You can formally execute this licensing agreement at the explicitly stated royalty rate, or you can immediately initiate the process of completely reformulating your entire primary product line. I am professionally estimating that the latter option will require an absolute minimum of several $1 million in emergency research and development funding, a complete overhaul of your manufacturing infrastructure, and it will undeniably result in a massive loss of critical client contracts during the chaotic transition period." The gathered executives began exchanging highly panicked, desperate glances. They possessed sufficient technical knowledge to understand that my assertions were completely accurate. My specific formulations were the absolute foundational backbone of their entire recent surge in market dominance. Without my intellectual property, they were effectively selling colored water. You will never successfully get away with this extortion, Vance threatened, his face flushing dark red with anger. We possess the financial resources to obliterate you in federal court. You absolutely possess the right to initiate litigation, I agreed amiably. However, the legal discovery process would prove to be exceptionally damaging to your organization. I am specifically referring to the extensive internal email communications discussing the deliberate strategy to aggressively force my resignation while simultaneously retaining the rights to my intellectual property. I am also referring to the documented communications wherein my daughter's severe medical vulnerabilities were explicitly identified as a strategic point of financial leverage against me. I have securely archived comprehensive copies of those communications as well. The reality was that I was executing a calculated bluff. I did not actually possess hard copies of those specific emails. However, judging by the immediate, terrified expressions illuminating their faces, I was absolutely certain those communications existed on their internal servers. Brenda abruptly stood up, her heavy leather chair scraping violently against the hardwood floor. "I need everyone to exit this room immediately," she ordered, her voice shaking. "Everyone except Hector." The conference room emptied with remarkable velocity. The moment the heavy doors clicked shut, ensuring our absolute privacy, her carefully maintained corporate mask completely disintegrated. "Do you possess any comprehension of the magnitude of what you have just done?" She hissed viciously, leaning aggressively across the table. "We built your career. We provided you with professional opportunities when absolutely no other organization would even grant you an interview." I allowed a soft, genuine laugh to escape my lips. "Is that the fabricated narrative you continuously repeat to justify your actions? I single-handedly generated over $40 million in verified value for this corporation over the past 7 years, while you compensated me with less than 1% of that generated revenue. I sacrificed my weekends, I worked through national holidays. I answered emails while sitting next to my daughter's hospital bed. And you deliberately chose to exploit that intense dedication because you believed my financial desperation made me a compliant victim. So this intricate legal maneuver is what? A petty attempt at revenge?" she demanded. "No," I replied, locking my gaze directly with hers and refusing to blink. "This is strictly business, just like your decision to slash my salary by 60% was strictly business." Her eyes narrowed into predatory slits. "What is preventing us from utilizing our massive legal resources to forcefully strip these patents, your possession? We possess financial capabilities you cannot even begin to comprehend." "Several critical factors," I explained calmly. "First, I have already officially accepted the position of Senior Director of Research with Zenith Innovations. My starting salary is exactly double my current compensation, for your reference. Furthermore, they are incredibly enthusiastic regarding my newly developed cold water formulation, an invention this company has not even had the privilege of reviewing." Her jaw literally dropped open in pure, unadulterated shock. "You are defecting to our primary competitor." Second, I continued smoothly, completely ignoring her interruption. "My newly executed employment contract with Zenith Innovations contains highly specific language explicitly acknowledging my absolute legal ownership of these existing patents. Crucially, the contract includes a highly aggressive legal defense clause, meaning their corporate legal team is contractually obligated to defend my patents against any external challenges, utilizing their massive financial resources." I deliberately reached into my suit pocket, extracted my corporate identification badge, and placed it precisely beside the licensing documents. "You have exactly until the close of business on Friday to make your final decision regarding the licensing agreement. Following that deadline, the royalty rate automatically increases by 20%. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, I have already engaged in a highly productive conversation with Marshall and Diego from the board of directors. They expressed profound concern regarding the potential catastrophic disruption to the business operations, and they seemed exceptionally interested in understanding exactly how this severe liability was allowed to develop under your leadership." I believe they are currently organizing an emergency board meeting scheduled for this afternoon. Marshall and Diego were the two most influential and demanding members of the board of directors, and I was fully aware that they had been intensely scrutinizing several of Brenda's recent operational decisions. Her face contorted into a mask of pure, unbridled fury. "You will never work in this industry again," she screamed. "I will personally ensure your professional reputation is completely destroyed." I smiled, experiencing a profound sense of genuine tranquility for the first time in nearly a decade. Actually, I believe my professional trajectory is exceptionally secure. I am going to be significantly better than fine. I turned my back to her and began walking toward the exit, pausing briefly before grasping the door handle. By the way, Clara is initiating a highly advanced medical treatment protocol next month. Thanks to the compensation package provided by my new position, I can finally afford the out-of-pocket expenses without experiencing crushing financial anxiety. So, in a deeply ironic way, I genuinely need to thank you for presenting me with that insulting salary reduction. It was the precise catalyst required to force me to truly recognize my authentic professional value. I walked out of the Apex Solutions headquarters for the absolute final time, physically feeling the immense, crushing weight of 7 years of corporate exploitation immediately lift from my shoulders. As I reached my vehicle, my phone vibrated with an incoming text message from Julian. "The final contracts are fully prepared for your signature whenever you are ready. The entire research team is incredibly excited to officially welcome you on Monday." That specific afternoon, I made the decision to pick Clara up early from her school. "Why are you not currently at the laboratory?" she asked, her expression clearly surprised as she climbed into the passenger seat. "I have officially acquired a new professional position," I informed her, feeling an uncontrollable smile spread across my face. "A significantly better position, and I believe it is highly appropriate that we celebrate this occasion. Does this development imply that we can finally adopt a dog?" she asked instantly, causing me to laugh out loud. You know what? I genuinely believe it does. Exactly 2 days later, the legal representation for Apex Solutions formally contacted Simon to completely accept my non-negotiable licensing terms. Exactly 1 week following that capitulation, Brenda was unceremoniously terminated from her position as division director following a rapid, highly aggressive investigation initiated by the board of directors. And exactly 3 weeks later, Clara began her new, highly advanced medical treatment with me sitting directly by her side, no longer terrified of facing professional retaliation for prioritizing my family over corporate demands. Occasionally, the absolute most devastating revolution is the one that the opposition never perceives until it is far too late. The perfectly quiet revolution. The calculated maneuver that is flawlessly executed while you are superficially smiling, politely nodding, and allowing your adversaries to believe you are entirely powerless and have absolutely no choice but to accept their dictatorial terms. My inaugural day at Zenith Innovations felt entirely surreal. Julian personally greeted me in the expansive main lobby, deliberately choosing not to wait in his executive office, a subtle, highly respectful gesture that communicated volumes regarding their organizational culture. He formally introduced me to the entire fully assembled research team as the primary innovator who possesses the capability to help us completely redefine the industry standards. There would be no more hiding in an isolated, poorly ventilated basement laboratory. There would be no more systematic downplaying of my scientific contributions. We have meticulously configured your primary office and your dedicated laboratory entirely according to the specific technical specifications you provided," he stated, proudly opening a heavy door to reveal an immaculate, state-of-the-art workspace that was easily twice the square footage of my previous environment. "And these are the elite researchers who will be directly reporting to you." 4 highly focused individuals stood waiting. 2 women and 2 men, all possessing advanced academic degrees and highly specialized skill sets deliberately chosen to complement my own areas of expertise. This was my dedicated team, not a situation where I was quietly supporting someone else's fabricated success. "My team, I have thoroughly reviewed your preliminary proposal regarding the cold water formulation," stated one of the senior researchers, Chloe. The underlying molecular architecture you have designed is absolutely brilliant. I do possess several technical thoughts regarding potential long-term stabilization enhancements, assuming you are open to authentic collaboration. Authentic collaboration, not brutal corporate competition, not a toxic culture of superiors maliciously stealing credit for subordinate innovations. This was actual, legitimate scientific partnership. For the first several days, I continuously anticipated discovering the hidden catch, the inevitable, toxic agenda hidden beneath the professional surface. Remarkably, none existed. That specific evening, when I picked up Clara from our neighbor's house, I was still experiencing a profound psychological elevation. "You look fundamentally different, Dad," Clara observed, intensely studying my facial expressions. "Different in what capacity?" I inquired. "I cannot exactly explain it. It is similar to that specific time we traveled to the ocean and you spontaneously removed your shoes and ran directly into the freezing waves. That specific type of different. Adolescents are remarkably perceptive. They notice absolutely everything." We deliberately stopped at a local animal rescue shelter on our route home, and were immediately introduced to a scruffy, one-eared shepherd mix appropriately named Buster, who had been languishing in the facility for several consecutive months. He instantly leaned his substantial weight against Clara's leg and gazed up at us with incredibly hopeful, amber-colored eyes. We were completely defenseless against that level of affection. "Is this genuinely happening?" Clara whispered reverently as we completed the extensive adoption paperwork. "This is absolutely, genuinely happening," I confirmed with absolute certainty. "A new professional trajectory, a new canine companion, an entirely new chapter of our lives." That night, with Buster sleeping comfortably at the foot of Clara's bed, I finally allowed myself to consciously experience an emotion I had aggressively suppressed for nearly a decade. Profound pride. Not simply the satisfaction of successfully outsmarting the corrupt executives at Apex Solutions, but the deep, abiding pride of finally possessing the courage to aggressively demand my authentic worth. My phone illuminated with an incoming text message from Simon, my patent attorney. "The board of directors at Apex is aggressively expanding their internal investigation. There are substantial rumors circulating regarding a massive, comprehensive financial review of the entire division. You have successfully initiated a catastrophic corporate avalanche." I had never actually intended to completely obliterate Apex Solutions merely to secure the financial compensation that was rightfully mine. However, organizational systems that are fundamentally built upon the systematic exploitation of their workforce inherently possess incredibly fragile foundations. If you apply precise pressure to the correct structural vulnerability, the resulting fractures will inevitably spread until the entire system collapses. Over the duration of the next several weeks, I systematically integrated myself into my new leadership role. At Zenith Innovations, my newly assembled team and I aggressively refined the cold water formulation, specifically targeting heavy industrial applications, and Julian utilized his executive authority to significantly fast-track the product for immediate commercial production. Concurrently, Clara officially commenced her highly advanced medical treatment plan, a specialized biologic therapy that our previous insurance provider had repeatedly denied as strictly experimental, but which my new, comprehensive executive benefits package covered without a single administrative dispute. I genuinely assumed that the chaotic chapter of my life involving Apex Solutions had permanently concluded. I was completely incorrect in that assumption. Exactly 6 weeks following my official departure, I received an unexpected phone call originating from an unfamiliar number while I was deeply engrossed in a complex laboratory procedure. "Am I currently speaking with Hector?" A hesitant female voice inquired. "Yes, this is he. May I ask who is calling?" responded cautiously. "My name is Maya. I am currently employed as a junior chemist at Apex Solutions. My psychological defenses instantly activated." "How exactly did you acquire my personal cellular number?" "I managed to obtain it through an administrative contact in the Human Resources Department. Please understand, I am absolutely not calling on their official behalf. I am calling you independently because the entire department is fully aware of what recently transpired regarding your patents and the mandatory licensing agreement.